This is day 2 of lesson 6.5, which is on applied proportions. So we're going to take everything we've learned and we're going to put it to practice. So there's 2 warm-up problems. I want you to try these on your own and then we'll do them together. So the first one says, what does it mean if 2 things are proportionate? Well, remember, if 2 things are proportionate, if they have a proportional relationship, that means that the rate of whatever we're comparing is constant or equal, okay? What are the different ways to solve a proportion? Well, we learned that there's a bunch of different ways to solve a proportion. We talked in 6.5 day 1 of using equivalent ratios. We talked about solving proportions using unit rates. We talked about using cross products. So a couple different ways we could do this. We could use cross products. We could take x times 20 and set it equal to 3 times 25, which would be 20x equals 75. Divide both sides by 20, and we get x equals, and then 20 goes into 75 3 times, and that would be 15/20ths left over, which is equivalent to 3 3/4. Okay, we could also do it this way where we know that no, we'll keep it that way. We'll keep it that way. Cross products, we like it. Okay, so on your notes it says a map uses the scale 1.5 centimeters equals 25 miles. 2 cities are 190 miles apart. How far apart are the cities on the map? So a few different ways we could do this. I'm going to set up a table to help keep things organized. So I'm going to do centimeters and miles. So I know on my map that 1.5 centimeters equals 25 miles. So I'm going to fill that in on my table. I have 2 cities are 190 miles apart. So I'm going to put that in the miles row, 190 miles. We're going to figure out how far apart they are on the map. So how far apart they are using centimeters. So I'm going to use cross products here. I'm going to take 25 times x, which is 25x. And I'm going to set it equal to 1.5 times 190. So I take 190 times 1.5, and I get 285. Then to solve this, I'm going to divide both sides by 25. And I'm left with x equals 11.4. Making sure that I have my label of centimeters. And then I look at my multiple choice. And it looks like B is the correct answer, 11.4 centimeters. Okay, the next problem, this chart that we have, it says the table shows the cost of different numbers of boxes of cookies. What is the cost to buy 15 boxes of cookies? Okay, there's so many different ways we could do this. We could find the unit rate and multiply that by 15. We could set up an equation using cross products. I'm going to do unit rate. So I'm going to figure out how much 1 box of cookies costs. So we know cost over boxes, 11.25 is 5 boxes. So to figure out 1 box, I have to divide both the numerator and the denominator by 5. So I take 11.25 divided by 5, and I get $2.25. So I know that 1 box is $2.25. So to figure out 15 boxes, I'm going to take $2.25 times 15, and I get $33.75. So I look at my options here, and A is correct. And we don't want to forget that label. Okay, so then you'll have to squish this one in on your notes, but it says, Jeremy can plant 10 trees in 4 hours. How many trees can he plant in 10 hours? So we can set up a proportion here. We could find the unit rate, or we can set up a table. I'm going to set up a table for this one. I'm going to do trees and hours. So we know he plants 10 trees in 4 hours. We're figuring out how many trees he can plant in 10 hours. So 10 hours and X. Going to use cross products here. 10 times 10 is 100. And set that equal to 4 times X, which is 4X. Divide both sides by 4. And I'm left with X equals 25 trees. So in my multiple choice, B would be correct, just have to add a label. He plants 25 trees in 10 hours. This problem is an example of proportions in the real world. So ingredients in large institutions are often given in ratios. For example, a recipe calls for milk, flour, and sugar in a ratio of 4:6:3. How much flour and sugar would you need with 1 cup of milk? We're going to set up 2 different proportions and solve. First thing I'm going to do is list out my 3 ingredients here. Milk, flour, and sugar. And this is a very important problem to have in your notes because there is one just like this on the test. So then I know the ratio is 4:6:3. It goes in the exact same order as the ingredients given. So 4, 6, and 3. We know that there is 1 cup of milk. So I'm going to put a 1 under the 4. And we need to figure out how much flour and sugar we would need. So I'm going to put X as my variable for both of those. I'm going to separate these into 2 different problems here so that I can use cross products to solve. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at milk and flour. And I'm going to use cross products. 4 times X is 4X equals 6 times 1 is 6. And then to solve for X, I'm going to divide both sides by 4 so that we get X equals, and then we take 6 divided by 4, which is 1.5. So if we have 1 cup of milk, we are going to use 1.5 cups of flour. And then to solve for sugar, we can either use 6 and 1.5, but I always like to go back to my original. So I'm going to use cross products with milk and sugar. So 4 times X, which is 4X, and set that equal to 1 times 3, which is 3. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 4 to get X by itself. And I'm left with X equals 3/4. So this would be 3/4. And I suppose since I'm leaving that one in fraction form, I can change 1.5 to 1.5 cups. So if we use 1 cup of milk, we use 1.5 cups of flour and 3/4 cup of sugar. The next problem says on a map, 3/4 inch equals 150 miles. How far would 2 inches be in miles? So I'm going to set up a table here so that I can compare inches and miles. So I know that 3/4 inch equals 150 miles. So I'm going to do 3/4 inch and 150 miles. Then on the next portion of my chart, it says how far would 2 inches be in miles? So I'm going to do 2 inches on the top and an X for miles because we're solving for how many miles. Then I'm going to use cross products here. So you could multiply fractions, 3/4 X, or we can just use decimals. Either one works for me. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 0.75X equals, and then 150 times 2 would be 300. To solve for X, I'm going to divide by 0.75 on both sides. And I'm left with X equals, and then I take 300 divided by 0.75, and I get 400. The only thing I'm missing here is the label. It's in the miles row, so I know that X is 400 miles. The next problem says if 1 kilometer is approximately 0.62 miles, how many kilometers are in 25 miles? Round the answer to the nearest tenth. So again, I'm going to set up a table. I'm going to do kilometers and miles. In my first column, we know 0.62 miles is equal to 1 kilometer. And then it says how many kilometers, so that would be our x, are in 25 miles. So I'm going to do 25 on the bottom. And then to solve for x, I'm just going to cross multiply. 0.62 times x is 0.62x. And set that equal to 1 times 25, which is 25. Then to solve for x, I'm going to divide by 0.62 on both sides. And I'm left with x equals, take 25 divided by 0.62. And rounding to the nearest tenth, you should get 40.3. Then I just need a label. It would be kilometers. This one says if 1 yard is 3 feet, how many feet are in 1 square yard? So if we set up a table and we do yards and feet, so we know 1 yard is 3 feet. We're figuring out 1 yard squared. So how do we get from 1 yard to 1 yard squared? Well, we multiply it by itself, right? 1 yard times 1 yard is 1 yard squared. So we'd have to do the same thing on the bottom. 3 feet times 3 feet would be 9 feet squared. Okay, so again, 1 yard times itself is 1 yard squared. 3 feet times itself is 9 feet squared. So our answer is 9 feet squared. And then the last problem on your notes, it says 2 brothers are saving money to buy a video game system and save the same amount each week. We know since they've saved the same amount, this is going to be proportional. Joe has saved $105 and Kyle has saved $104. How much money will Joe have when Kyle has saved $180? All right, so if we set up a table here, we know we have Joe and we have Kyle, JK. Joe has saved 105, so I'm going to do 105 saved. And Kyle has saved 124. Okay, making sure that those are in the same column. Then when Joe has, or we're figuring out how much Joe will have when Kyle has saved 180. So I'm going to cross multiply here. I'm going to take 105 times 180. And I get 18,900 equals, and then 124 times x is 124x. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 124. And I'm left with x equals, and we'll round this, $152.42. So that's how much Joe will have when Kyle has saved $180.